Hi, everyone. Welcome. Today, we are really excited to have on Erin Porter, who is a family autism coach. So, hi, Erin. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
We're happy to have you. So, for anyone who maybe isn't familiar with you, if you could give us a little bit of background, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm a teacher in Canada, in Ontario, and I noticed while I was teaching and in spec ed that there were some gaps in the school system, and I started to fill those gaps in at school, and then noticed that there was a parent piece missing. So I applied everything that I knew about teaching and programming for children in school to supporting parents who have newly diagnosed children with autism. There are gaps here in Ontario and all over, and I help parents fill in the gaps while they wait for funding or to get pulled off wait lists or just really want to get going on early intervention.
And that is such a huge piece. I can't even imagine as a parent of a new child in general is very stressful, but then you get a diagnosis and you don't even know anything about the diagnosis, which can be super overwhelming. And then what? Then, a lot of time you've got to wait for funding. And then, what do you do in between? So it's nice to know that there is a stopgap or there is somebody who you can turn to for those questions.
Yeah. And what I found is that parents leave the doctor's office with a piece of paper and they don't know what comes next. And what comes next could mean a whole bunch of different things for all parents and families. They're all at a different place in their own journey. And that's where I hold their hand and I help them move from step to step, meet them where they're at, and help them to learn where their own child is at and what next steps are for their own child.
So what do you think is the biggest gap that you're seeing? There's, like you said, like the gap of not knowing where to go, lack of knowledge, lack of experience, lack of services, wait lists, funding. Those are a lot of challenges. What do you see as, one of the biggest challenges for parents?
Wow. Some of the challenges start before they even get the diagnosis. And that is, how do I even talk to a doctor about that? So I support some families come to me to say, I don't know. I don't know what this is. And there's a real gap in understanding about getting the right diagnosis, because sometimes it's not autism. Sometimes there's a communication disorder. Sometimes there's hearing issues. So understanding communication is a huge thing for families and moving forward with the next right steps for the child in their communication. Navigating services, that is a huge issue in Ontario. People don't even know where to start with that. Toileting, behavior, applying for kindergarten, educational advocacy, sensory issues, OT, SLP, like it just goes on. And diet, getting rid of the bottle and helping with speech with that. Like they're all so connected, and parents sometimes feel like there might just be one issue, but discovering one issue opens up the doors to all the other issues that are there.
I know that something I come across a lot is sometimes parents kind of want to wait and see. Like they're a little bit hesitant to pursue any kind of diagnosis or, do any kind of therapy because like maybe they're just a late talker, maybe like they're just, a little bit quiet or shy. I'm wondering if you, maybe see something similar, and what would you say to those parents who are just trying to, or maybe their doctor even said to wait and see?
I say a couple of things to parents. One is, getting the right diagnosis is really important. Not the diagnosis that they're afraid of or looking for, but the right one. And through my whole teaching career, I always said what is necessary for some is good for all. So even if you don't have a diagnosis and you want to wait and see, there are things that you can be doing to encourage communication while you're waiting. You don't have to wait and do nothing. The waiting time shouldn't be a void of intervention. It should be lots of intervention, because part of waiting and seeing is trying and seeing.
Really with intervention, we're really looking at just good teaching as well, right? So it's really about teaching parents how to get down on the ground and play with their kids and, really try and establish a connection. And whether it's autism or whether it's a communication delay or whether it's some other diagnosis, even just any type of early intervention can be great. And what I've seen that the gap just gets wider when you wait. And that's what's really scary is that, if, parents do wait, whether they're waiting for a diagnosis to get, intervention or whether they're waiting until kindergarten or just a let's wait and see period because I'm in denial. There's a whole bunch of reasons why they're waiting, but you see that gap starting to get wider between, their child and other kids their age. And that's what's frightening.
Mm-hmm. And that we can fill in that gap with lots of things to do in there. And just waiting doesn't mean that all of a sudden they're going to get it or all of a sudden they're going to learn. Waiting means let's do some intentional things to see if they work, no matter if there's a diagnosis or not. There are things to do. And I work with the parents. So I support the parents, like you said, getting on the floor and using different strategies and trying different things. So I don't come into the home and work with the child. I work with the parents to make that connection and to teach them communication strategies and to support their child in that waiting period.
And I love that because I find that even if you're not waiting, but sometimes parents will think, well, it's the ABA therapist who's going to do it, or it's the teacher who's going to do that. So I either have to wait until there's a spot in the clinic and I could drop off my kid and that's what I'm waiting for. Or, I'm just waiting for them to work their magic. And then, it's not, they kind of take less responsibility. And I love the idea of empowering the parents to feel like the solution is within them also. So in addition to anything you're working on with the school or with the ABA therapist or the clinic or anything like that, the parent piece is huge, and empowering parents to feel like they can be part of the solution, I think is so important because it makes such a difference when the parents have the tools.
Yeah, the parents are the advocate, and they need to know their child so well. So they need to be the ones to make the connection. And a lot of parents have said to me, I feel like my child is drifting away. So let's not drift. Let's get in there and let's stop the drifting and let's connect. And if parents are leaving it to other professionals to do that, the connections are going to be over there. And we want parents to know their children so well that they can advocate for them and connect with them in a very special way that's meaningful for the family.
One thing that we forget as, ABA professionals, as teachers, is that teaching doesn't always come naturally to a lot of people, right? So, parents with a newly diagnosed child, maybe accountants, maybe engineers, maybe doctors, maybe in a completely different profession and have never had to teach before. And it can be completely overwhelming. So something that comes naturally to us, doesn't come naturally to parents, and they must be overwhelmed, not just with the diagnosis, but where do I start?
Yeah, I think parents get overwhelmed too with the behavior. And that's a really tricky one to navigate for parents when they're unsure whether this is autism or this is behavior or this is just a 2-year-old being a 2-year-old. And how do you navigate all of that when they seemingly don't understand? And I think they do understand. I think you're actually pretty smart.
I know I've had that exact question when speaking to a parent, them saying, well, I don't know if it's the autism or the behavior. I don't know if it's the diagnosis or, just the reinforcement. And I said, it doesn't matter. What we're looking at is we're not looking at a diagnosis. We're looking at working on the behaviors and making your life just, that much easier if we can. Can you tell us a little bit about your program? What would that look like? It's called the Guided Autism Program.
It is. It's which stands for GAP because we fill in the gaps. So what I do initially, I have a 10-week program where I work one-on-one with families. They're available to me 24/7, and we work on everything that is a goal for the family. So I do an intake. to figure out where the family is at in terms of their goals and where the child's at. So we look at medical things, we look at safety, self-care, sensory, academic, social interactions. We look at everything that's going on in the house and align that with the parents' goals. And that's where I come in to support the parents to move their child forward. So they can meet their family goals. So for some families, that's toileting. For some families, that's registering for JK and getting through transition meetings and finding support within the education system. That's hard to do. Some families are walking out of the doctor's office with a piece of paper and they don't know what comes next. So they need support navigating services. Some families need it all. A really common thread among all the families is communication. So meeting the child where they're at in terms of communicating and teaching the parents how to see how their child is communicating. Because we all know all behavior is communication, right? So parents don't sometimes see that. So after 10 weeks, parents can well, if they get their funding or they are called off wait lists, then I will transition them to the professionals and have a meeting like this and let the therapists, professionals know what we've been doing and where we're at. But I also have a year-long program. So it's not as intense as the first 10 weeks, but it's a community of families who are all new to autism. And I cater to the needs of the group. So people will come on calls, in group calls. It's not one-to-one anymore, but if people are working on, say, getting rid of the bottle, then Tuesday night's call is getting rid of the bottle night. Come on and join the call and we talk as a community. Or if you're toileting, every Wednesday and Friday, we're going to talk toileting issues and talk about where you're at and what comes next. So the 10-week program is one-to-one and very specific, and then they can transition into the year-long program with a community of support.
Must be so nice for parents to be able to have some types of foundational skills when they transition eventually to an ABA program or to another program. Because I can't even imagine if somebody told me the analogy of, when we talk ABA gibberish to outsiders who aren't in the ABA community or parents specifically, that when we use ABA jargon, it's the equivalent of us dropping our car off at the mechanic and the mechanic says, this and this and this are wrong with it. And we look at them with wide eyes and go, okay, I don't understand that, but I'm not going to admit that. Just smile and nod and fix it, please. Yeah. Right. And with, being able to have that intensive program with you, but then also to be able to stay on and have a community of parents. It must be so nice to have that safe environment where they can ask those questions. Like, when my provider said this, what does that mean? Or, hey, just in terms of, not that you're a social worker, but just in terms of that social work aspect of it, it's just, I need some counseling. I need some hand holding. Can you help me through this?
Yeah, and that's what I think of. A parent described me the other day as a hand holder, and just walk them through whatever it is that they need. I have professionals in the background that I consult with. So in the year-long program, if someone posts a question about, I've got to take my child to the dentist, well, I have a dentist who serves children with special needs, and he'll chime in with, this is what I do, and this is what I need you to do. Same with, I have a dietitian and a speech and language pathologist. I have someone who helps navigate services. I don't have the answers to everything that they're asking. So I've built a community around me too that supports people. So it's sort of like a one-stop shop.
You're like a contractor of all things, all trades having to do with autism. And I love that, how you described the first one as being individualized without it being like, this is the plan for everyone. It's one size fits all. I know, like, just becoming a parent, I was a parent before I was a BCBA, and the amount of overwhelm on just like regular parenting stuff, and you feel like a failure because you're not following this method on how to sleep train and this method on how to feed and this method. And then you get a child with autism and you also get inundated with like, I'm going to do PRT, but not DTT. And I'm going to do ESDM, but not. And as a parent, you're like, well, what does that all mean? And it's so overwhelming to be able to navigate that. But I like how you described it. It's really just about your goals. Like whatever your goals are, we individualize that. And I think as a parent, having that, that roadmap of somebody walking along with you is such a relief, because like it's so overwhelming.
It is. And some parents, well, they don't recognize the signs of autism. So things snowball. And well, here's an example. I had one family that was highly criticized about their parenting from other family members, and then got the diagnosis, but didn't want to tell the family and didn't want to tell the friends. And part of their goals over the 10 weeks was being confident in talking about it publicly and sharing with family. And I was able to mediate that online with members of the family and to talk about what all of this means to them and their family and their parenting. And so
really do everything.
It really is. And it's hard to say when people say, well, what do you do? I hold their hand.
Anything.
I'm a professional hand holder. That's what I do.
what they need. And some parents, I had one family that toilet trained their child, and I was on calls or phone calls or emails with them multiple times a day. Like, what do we do about this? What do we do about this? Okay, just calm and try this now. And now we're going to move on to this. And other families who don't need toileting, but they need to know how to tell grandma how to babysit. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's everybody's needs are different. And I think it's really important to honor everybody's needs and to honor the place where everybody's at, including the child, because we can only move forward from where we are. So like you said, that one size fits all doesn't work at all. Right. But when parents can understand where they're at and where their child is at, well, then they can move into this group and pick and choose what it is they need, because now they know where they're at.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say is like the time commitment that a parent should have to really invest in this?
Wow, like in autism in general, or just in this program?
Your program.
That's like, this is a lifelong journey. The 10-week program is a scheduled call once a week for 10 weeks. They're about an hour and a half, but I never hang up on anyone. So we go until we're done. The intake at the beginning is a little bit longer. But that's just the minimum. So over the 10 weeks, if parents need me between those calls, we set up more calls. If they want to show me how they've been doing things or trying things, then they'll set up the camera, they'll record, they'll send it to me, and I'll reply with tips. Or one family would have the Zoom call running with their daughter right there trying things, and I would coach them on that. So it's a minimum of an hour with me once a week for 10 weeks, but then there's lots of stuff to put in place over the next week until we meet again. So there's definitely a few hours a day, but what it really is for a lot of people is a shift in their mindset in parenting, in communicating, and in prioritizing things, because it might not be the most important thing that your child wears this t-shirt to school. It's okay if they go in their pajamas. Like it's actually just a shift in mindset to realize that, okay, that's okay if they want to wear their rubber boots all day. That's actually fine. Let's move on to some things that are like really picture things that we can make an impact with.
There's Peter Gerhardt, who works with adults. He says, always ask yourself, is this the bridge you want to die on today? Right? Is this really the problem that you want to go down for? No, it's not. Like, pick your battles, definitely.
Battles, and let's choose some really meaningful goals, because once you understand communication, then you can communicate to your child about the rubber boots and rainy days and all of those things. But so what if they're wearing rubber boots today? Really? But parents can learn how to have a conversation in however a conversation looks, about that down the road when they understand the communication piece.
Mm-hmm. And I love how you describe that. I think so often as BCBAs, we sometimes go into homes and talk to parents with our agenda. As in, we've been working with this child on labeling, or we've been working on requesting. So this is what you have to do in the home. And this is how you have to generalize the skill. And I'm going to teach you how. And I think the way you're coming at it, it sounds like, well, what are your goals, parents? And what are you struggling with? And, forget what they may or may not do in school or whatever, but like, how can I help you accomplish your goals? And I think that that's definitely something that, we can learn from and we could do better at. And I like how you described it as kind of that individual process. It's as much or as little as they want, because they really do have to want it. It has to be something that they're invested in.
Yeah, they do. And that's the parents that I get are really motivated. They're motivated to take action and to do something while they wait.
And what do you find is like the biggest transformation that you see in parents? I think you said, is it the mindset shift? Is it, they know how to manage behaviors? Like what do you find are some of like the biggest wins?
Definitely connecting with their children. A number of children that I have helped a number of families, not specifically children, but some families really like the picture exchange system, but we start very simply with just pictures of stuff that are in their house, like family members, right? Just labeling family members' names. And this one family that I helped from Toronto, when she got her pictures out and she was showing and labeling and doing, she left the picture of herself to the very end. And her little boy, who was 2.5 at the time, he picked it up and kissed it. and then he put it back down. And like, those are the wins, right? Those are the times when parents are like, he does get it. He does know who I am. He understands, he sees pictures. So then I'm like, okay, so now we don't need pictures. Now we can move on to like this is where he's at. This is so amazing. So amazing that he did that. But now we can move on. We can move on to other things. So the wins like project us into the next thing that's going to happen. So definitely the connections are there for parents who are working really hard on the communication. I think parents are overwhelmed too with routine or lack of routine, right? Because just getting out the door every day can be super difficult. But once we can put a routine in place that is, visual and predictable and repeated, and their children follow it, and all of a sudden now morning is easier to get out the door, and they think, wow, okay, this works. And then they start to see how they can take that and apply it to other things. So we're generalizing with the parents too.
Yeah, those are some great wins. And I think, like you said, it's important for parents to see the value in that. If you could solve a small problem for them, like a morning routine, then it's so exciting for them to keep it going. Or if they could, like with the pictures, all of a sudden they see there's like these glimmers of understanding and connection, and it's motivating the parents to keep going when, things can seem really overwhelming and daunting. Just giving them those small wins to continue is so important.
Yeah. One family, one of their goals was to get their son to stop hitting everyone. And we drilled down to identify that he wanted to play. So he was asking to play without the words to ask to play, but he was hurting people. And in hurting people, he was making people upset. And then he was being punished for hurting people. And we had this circle this sort of vicious circle, catch-22. And when everybody stopped and realized that he wanted to play, and we changed the approach. So when he hits, a sibling would say, "Do you want to play?" And he would stop hitting. He knew he wanted to play, so they would get something to play. But just before they played, the sibling would say, "I want to play with you too, but I don't want you to hit me." And after, well, it took a while, right? It took a few weeks, but he stopped hitting, and we put a plan in place for him to show the family when he wanted to play. So that just brought the tension in the whole house down, because the family goal was to have a calmer household.
So it's like you're going from chaos, either lack of routine or, negative behavior, etc., to calm, right? So
the name of my program, Chaos to Calm.
The website. So how do parents go from chaos to calm when they reach out for support? Like, how do they find you?
Well, they can find me on Facebook. I have a free Facebook page. So one of the things that I identified was that I can't help everyone. Not everyone can pay, and it's a fee for service because it's between funding and the diagnosis. But I wanted to be able to provide support to as many people as I can. So they can find me on Facebook. The Facebook group is called Launching Life with Autism. They can also find me on Facebook on like a professional Facebook page called the Guided Autism Program. But they can Google that as well and find my webpage, which is where they can connect with me.
Excellent. We'll put all of this in our show notes as well. So those of you listening, you want to get in touch with Erin, go to our show notes or go to theguidedautismprogram.com.
Amazing. Thank you.
Erin, thank you so much. This conversation has been awesome. I think I've done more listening than asking questions because I'm just so enthralled with what you do. And I'm so impressed and so excited that someone's, taking on that challenge, not even challenge, but just taking on the parent piece of it. Because, as professionals, we're always working with the kids and not the parents as much. So thank you for filling in that gap.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited about it. I just love talking about it, and we'll talk to anyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.